Hi everyone, Alex from Lacroix boards here. Wanted to cover a bunch of things long overdue on the board. So let's get to it. The board that I have right now is a DSS 50 Plus. It has the upgraded Sanyo 2700 battery pack. But the subjects that we're going to cover today apply to both boards, both the DSS 60 and the 50 Plus. So going from front to back, wanted to discuss a couple quirks about the board, things you should know, things you should keep in mind as of maintenance, and when you receive your board, things to check out for. So first of all, front wheels. The front wheels do not have, well actually all four wheels don't have any spacers. Don't have any bearing spacers. So you need to be very careful when torquing the wheels not to torque the axle nut too much or you'll crush the bearings. What I recommend doing is simply to tighten the nut until there is no more play in the wheel. So that will have the effect of not creating any rattle at high speeds. So it's normal that the wheel doesn't spin so much. So that's the first thing. Second thing, the top truck of both the rear and the back truck, we disassemble them completely. And the reason for that is that we don't want any lateral play. Going forward on the board, all these screws, they're Phillips and they are in three parts. So there's the screw, there is a countersink washer, and underneath there is a nylon washer. And you should not torque these too much as well. We torque them to 0.8 Newton meters, each and every one of them. So that's what if you don't have a torque wrench, we use the Weha torque wrench, which is a very good tool, but you can find some cheaper ones, and I recommend you buy some because all of these screws need to be precisely very tight all the time, or else you might damage the electronics and water might seep in and whatnot. It also creates some rattle, which is very bad for the electronics. When they are all tight, there's no rattle because everything is foamed up and in a tight foam sandwich. So going at the back of the board, a couple of things to cover here. First of all, belt tension. So the belts should be as loose as possible, like a medium rare steak. And as loose as possible, but so that they don't skip on hard acceleration or hard braking. So this is the tension that we put on the board when it chips out, and it gives you an idea of the ideal tension. So it's a bit trickier to get the appropriate tension on the 16 tooth pulley, which is the smaller of the two pulleys that come with the board, the motor pulleys, simply because there's less surface of contact with the belt, but you can play a little with it. It shouldn't be too difficult. To adjust the tension of the belt, you need to unscrew the 4 button screws that hold the motor, and it will slide on the axis of the motor mount, and that's how you actually tighten it with a 2.5 millimeter hex, like this one. Some of your boards have a stainless steel spacer here that we add. It's a washer actually that we add in order to get the nut further away on the thread of the kingpin in order for that nut to be compressing the whole top truck when we torque it. So what does that mean? It means that sometimes the washer that comes with the truck is too thin, and even if you torque it, there's still a play. Like in this one, there's a play like this, which we don't like at high speeds. It creates rattles and it's just very unpleasant. So what we do is we add a spacer so that nut is further away on the thread of the kingpin, and what you need to look out for is not to torque it too much. So you can add any spacer on here. We put a spacer similar as this one, which is 1/4 of an inch. That's the center hole. It simply needs to be aligned and on the spacer. And you need to make sure that both spacers are really well aligned, or else the nut will not rest flatly on the washer, and that will create problems. So when you're tightening it, what we found is that to torque it at 4.6 Newton meters is actually the sweet spot where you don't compress it too much so as to compromise the top truck. If you actually do torque it too much, you might break the top truck when you are at speed. So 4.6, and it's not so much. You don't really need to compress it so much when you're adding these washers. So just to give you an idea, and at 4.6, it doesn't move anymore. So that's the sweet spot. So the rear wheels, the quirk is the following. You have on your rear wheels one of 4 sizes of spacers that determines the space between the pulley and the hub. And the different spacers are identified with the color sticker that you have. So pink is 1/2 inch. This spacer would be 1/2 inch. Green is 31/64 of an inch. Yellow is 7/16 of an inch. And orange is 26/64 of an inch. And the reason why we use these various spacers is to compensate for the imperfectness of the imperfections on the rear truck. So the big M8 hole that is used for the brake is not precisely at the same place on each and every truck, which means that when we install our motor mounts, if we always use the same spacer on the wheel, sometimes the wheel would rub on the motor mount. So that's the reason why we use different spacers on each and every one of your boards. And we use, and even from left to right on the same truck, ideally we would use different spacers sometimes, but for compatibility, so that one of your wheels, you don't end up with one of your wheels rubbing on your trucks, we ship your board with 3 identical wheel with 3 identical spacers. And that is why on one side it might not be, the belt alignment might not be exactly as on the other side of your truck. If you want to play with the wheel alignment, the only thing that you need to do is take off this rear wheel, which I'll demonstrate because it's fairly easy. So it's just like putting the chain on a bicycle. You could just pop this off, slide the belt off, and you're good to go. So you would need, if you want to play with the belt alignment, you have about like 1/2 millimeter here of play on the axle where the motor pulley sits. So you can actually slide this back and forth without it. The important is that it never rubs on the motor mount. So what you need to do is take a 2 millimeter hex key and unscrew the 2 grub screws, and you'll be able to slide it. And a rule of thumb for each and every screw on the board is to heat them up with a heat gun, because we use a lot of Permatex blue gel on installation, and the pulley might have seized on the axle. So if you heat everything up a little, then it will slide right off once you undo the 2 grub screws. If your board came with orange shock blocks in the front, it's simply because we did not have any yellows left in stocks. So what we do is we put some orange ones in front, in which we drill a small hole to make them a bit softer, pending the receipt of all our yellow shock blocks, at which point we just ship them through the mail. So if your board came with orange shock blocks, just be patient, and in a few weeks you'll get some yellow shock blocks. But in the meantime, you have some softer orange shock blocks up front. There are 2 screws on the rotor mount, a small M6 grub screw and the large cap head M8 screw. You should never have to touch these. On those 2 specific screws, we put some red Loctite, which means that they won't budge unless you heat them up, but you should never have to heat them up. You should never touch them. One thing I wanted to discuss was some design elements behind the wheel and how that affects speed wobble at high speed. So the reason why we didn't put any washers between the head of this bolt and the pulley is because the difference in thickness between the spacers actually creates an uneven surface and actually makes the wheel wobble at high speed. It's also the reason why we don't put any cap on this valve. It's because this additional weight, a rotational weight, actually creates a tiny wobble. But most importantly, how you can eliminate almost 90% of the wobble is by doing 2 things. First of all, is centering this pulley on the axis. So it is very difficult to center it specifically on the hub, and that's why we provide a 3D file so that you can print a 3D print a pulley centering jig that will allow you to snap on this this centering pulley, put it on the axle like this, and then screw your 5 screws to make sure that the pulley is actually perfectly centered on the hub. So that's the first thing. You can do it manually. It just takes a lot of time and kind of precision to do it. It's just easier to do with the centering jig. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is to precisely torque each and every one of these 5 screws in a star pattern at 0.55 Newton meters. That is 0.55 Newton meters of torque, which is the minimal amount of torque that you would need in order for these screws to be tight. But at the same time, by putting this specific amount of pressure, equal pressure on all 5 of those screws, you ensure that you have the same amount of pressure, and that won't create any wobble at high speed as well. So that's the trick. Same torque on all of those 5 screws, and torque them in a star pattern with the centering, and you'll eliminate 90% of the wobble. And when putting back this rear wheel, fairly easy. You simply take your pulley. It's like putting the chain back on a bike. Put it on the rear pulley, and then you just kind of slide it on like this. And just rotate it, and after a full revolution, you'll be fine. When putting it back on, only thing to look for is this wobble, lateral play, I mean, between the wheel on the axle. So if you grab the wheel and see how much it can spin as freely as possible without having a play. So now there's a tiny play. Then you just screw it a bit more, make sure there's no play, and you're good to go. So you don't need to be playing with the motor at all when putting on and off your rear wheel. And another thing to keep in mind is that your belt might slack after a couple 100 kilometers. So you might feel some belt skip after a while, so you'll need to adjust slightly to tension. Sometimes not, but if you live in a hotter climate, that might happen. Other thing I wanted to cover is these screws under each shock block. You should make sure that they are always engaged. So just to show you how they're made, so you understand a bit better their function, there is a pin at the end of this screw that actually inserts in the shock block. So the head of this screw actually inserts itself in the shock block, and that's what prevents the shock block from popping off when you're carving. So if this screw is not engaged in the shock block, and your shock block is actually just resting on the top here, there's a risk that it slides out from under the truck. So it's important to always engage this screw in the shock block. Okay, that's all for today. Thanks. If ever you want a subject covered on our next tutorial, just please leave your message in the comments and we'll make sure to cover it in our next videos. Thanks. The feeling that you get when riding one of our boards is much more like carving into snow, like snowboarding in deep powder, than any other feeling that you would have on a snowboard. Just because it flexes a lot, but also because your whole body really leans into the carve. So but you know, you can't do that with readily available parts today. Those are literally wheelchair tires, and those trucks are mountain board trucks. So that's why I'm saying it's a bit of a Frankenstein, because none of these parts were actually designed to do what we make them do. But I think that like the more we're going to see in the next couple of years, that, you know, the whole carving experience, and now with the batteries and the motors and this whole electric thing, that the possibilities are much greater than what we've seen so far.
How fast are your boards? I totally forgot. It's my fault.
You guys are so annoying.
Yeah, and range.
Danny asked me the same question, and I'll answer what I told him. You just Google it.
Just Google it, right?
Yeah.
Google has all the answers.
As fast as your balls will take you.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Very quick. I mean, you need to be very responsible when you're, because the board is always can go faster than what you can actually handle. Yeah, it's no joke.
I love the advice.
Yeah.
I love the advice. Range.
Your size, you were looking around 33, 34, 35 mile range on our biggest model, and around 28, 26, 25 on our...
I love the honesty. You see how he said it depends on the person's weight?
Absolutely.
Right? Because a lot of these manufacturers, they just say, oh yeah, it could take you 40 miles.
Well, if you pick the 110 and you're a lady,
yeah, exactly.
You're a girl, but you know,
that's amazing.
Medium riders, yeah. So that's our
honesty, guys. You see that? Take note. Honesty. Thank you, man. Thank you very much.
Deshaun, always great to see you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, the CEO of Lacroix, Alex. What's up, guys? What's up?
What's up, it's your boy DW bringing you tech, gadget, product reviews, and more. Today we have an exciting board for you. It is the Lacroix DSS 60 electric skateboard. It's manufactured by a Canadian company who wants to bring a premium board into this exciting e-boarding community. This is definitely not the typical budget board and comes with a hefty price tag. So let's take a look at what it has to offer and to see if it's worth your money. Components. We have two Matrix 2 trucks that are 15.5 inches in length, the widest out there to give you the stability at high speeds and maximum carving on other speeds. The shock blocks, which comes in yellow and orange, replaces traditional coil springs to reduce weight while giving you the same dampening and rebound. There are four 7-inch pneumatic tires to offer a smoother, more comfortable, and safer ride. No more scanning around for bumps and cracks on the road. Just sail through them and your feet will thank you later for not needing to rest every 5 miles. Recommended for urban streets, these are not all-terrain tires and should not be treated as such. Go off-roading at your own discretion. The super wide 10.5-inch custom deck is made from Canadian maple with a splash of carbon fiber, concave and arch to give you a more natural standing position so your feet can sink in while carving and going at high speeds. This combination with the flexi deck gives you a feeling of snowboarding and surfing instead of traditional skateboarding. The carbon fiber enclosure is big, taking up the majority of the lower deck. The section pockets and gaps allows the board to maintain its flex while holding onto 60 cells of battery. Speaking of, you can choose between 60 cells of 30Qs or 50 cells of 2700s. Equipped with dual Foxbox under the hood, it's able to take these gigantic 6374 motors packed with 3500 watts each to ridiculous speeds. The remote is simple and generic. It has a throttle that accelerates and brakes, on and off switch on the bottom, and 2-mode toggle switch on the side. The other buttons are disabled. There's a charging port on the bottom along with a wrist strap. The ergonomics and fit feels fine, and the connection to the board is good, but there's nothing fancy here. The remote feels and looks cheap. It doesn't seem to suit the same level of quality as the rest of the board. One last remark, there is no battery indicator. Look and style. Although style is subjective, I find the board to be very clean and elegant. From the natural wood to a fully carbon fiber enclosure, the deck is the centerpiece. The size of everything from the motors to tires screams attention, and you'll definitely turn some heads. Even though I appreciate the function of the wide trucks, I would prefer them to be shorter to give the board a slimmer profile. I'm also not a fan of the hex grip tape and may swap them out in the future. As for now, I added some red stripes to complement my helmet. Performance. If you like speed and is looking for a race car, this is it. The acceleration is strong and max speed is yet to be tested. People have reported 38 miles per hour and I've gone as much as 31. It is definitely more torquey than your average board, so prepare yourself for takeoff. Tackling hills is a breeze, and there haven't been one that put me into submission. Even the most troubling hill in Central Park, New York, had me racing up at 25 miles per hour. Braking is just as sharp as acceleration, so if you're not ready for it, it will toss you. You can overcome this by learning how to ease into it, but it will take time and practice. Turning and carving at medium to medium high speeds are good. It will take some practice and a little more to get used to due to the size and the width of the deck. You will need to use your entire body more or put a little more weight into the turns. Carving feels great and simulates the feeling of snowboarding that is satisfying and refreshing. Whether you are cruising through scenic routes or running through speed sessions, what's better than to prolong it as much as you can? The two battery options here gives you a listed 31 or 37 miles of range. That's enough to ensure a good time and suitable for any commute. Your feet will likely give out before your board does. Comfort and safety. You're definitely going to feel less impact from the bumps and cracks with the pneumatic tires and flexi deck. You can even roll over small rocks and branches and not worry about it throwing you off. You will appreciate the smoother ride and can travel farther before needing a break. The tires, along with the stability of the Matrix trucks, provides a safer ride even at high speeds compared to other boards. You can hit up to 28 miles per hour and not worry about wobble. The wider deck allows your feet to really sink in and gain control of the board. My feet were able to lock in and felt secured when going at faster speeds or performing deep carving. Pros. The construction is solid and the aesthetics is nice. Touching and holding it feels premium. It's clean without too much loose ends. It's eye-catching and you'll feel like you're riding an exotic car. I've gotten at least one person asking me about the board every time I take it out. The acceleration is great and it doesn't jolt you at the start. There's a mini second at the beginning of your acceleration where the board starts to move, but slowly, just to give you some preparation before the speed ramps up. After an initial second, it takes off and it goes fast, very fast. It can probably compete and beat out any board in the market that's not DIY. This board has a lot of torque on the stock setup, but if you ever feel you need more, you can always change to the included 16-tooth pulley for even more power. And that's the thing, the board is not the limit is the user. If you need more power, it's there. If you need more speed, you can push it. I myself am pretty comfortable at the stock setup and haven't come close to maxing out the speed. What's nice is that most of the time, I'm happy just cruising at 18 miles per hour and taking in the surroundings. But if you ever need to, you can always pump the gas. The comfort of not worrying about cracks and bumps on the road is a sigh of relief. No more slowing down and prepping those knee bends. These tires easily rose over them and provides a nice cushion for your feet. I was able to comfortably cross this bridge without any feet fatigue while my friends needed a break.
Man, my feet are dead.
Oh boy.
I haven't had a chance to fully test out the range, but I went around 20 miles on a group ride and it was still going like the Energizer battery. I'm 165 pounds and I expect this to hit at least 25 miles on a single charge. What's nice is that I can leave my charger at home most of the time and not need to worry about power management. There's no question mark on the parts you use here. You don't need to worry about quality control. Everything comes from brand name, reputable companies that have had their products already tested. And since they are known parts, you can easily get replacements as well. Cons. While I appreciate the function of the wide truck, you have to be cautious of its width. You can easily bump into things where a narrow board would not. Squeezing in between cars or path dividers require more attention. Hitting one of these would be brutal. The size of the board also makes it difficult to turn and navigate through street corners and crowded spaces. The deck is big, wide, and comfortable, but while getting on it, it can take a little longer to find the optimal foot placement. Maybe adding a little more concave in that area will help. 2 of the screws for my enclosure came loose after my first ride, so be sure to check it from time to time to avoid losing them. The belt tensions were not matching out of the box, and adjusting them may require additional tools. Traveling or carrying the board is difficult. It weighs 25 pounds with no handle. Lifting it, carrying it on the side isn't practical. You can drag it on the end of the motors, but after a city block, your arm is going to feel it. You also can't kick it because of the drag from the belt. So if you must have portability, this is not the board for you. I think the next issue is with the ESC, the motor controllers. So whenever you slow down to come to a stop and the board is slowing down to around 2 miles an hour, there's a sudden, sharp braking action that happens. There's a jerk. The first few times that it happens to me definitely freaked me out a little bit and pushed me forward. I don't think there's enough speed at that moment to actually push you off the board, but you'll definitely feel it. Over time, you'll get used to it and you'll be prepared for it, but it is a little annoying. There is no battery indicator anywhere on the board or the remote, so the only way to tell is to use a third-party app. Although there's been reported success by other owners, mine has not. I have tried 7 different phones from iOS to Android to tablet, and none were able to receive the battery information. Even swapping a replaceable Bluetooth module given by the company, it still does not work. Until this is fixed, it's a major worry of mine because I just don't know when my battery will give out during the middle of a ride. This leads to the biggest gripe I have with the board, the remote. The basic functions are there and the connection is good, but it has some serious problems. First, it's cheaply made and constructed. The battery inside the remote came loose during one of my rides and started rattling. I had to do an immediate DIY, unscrew the case, and duct tape the battery back in place. This remote has no battery indicator. Even on my cheap budget board, it comes with a battery indicator to give me a peace of mind of knowing that I have enough juice to return home. The throttle is sensitive and has the same tension throughout. On my other remote, as I get closer to pulling full throttle, the tension in the spring increases and sort of give you a second warning before committing to max acceleration. This remote doesn't have that. You can easily or accidentally nudge it to full acceleration or braking and it would throw you off the board. Another safety concern is the power switch. It is not a button but a switch that sticks out and easily movable. On 2 occasions when I was riding, I accidentally ran the switch across my clothing and it turned off my remote. Luckily, I noticed it and I wasn't in the crowded street where I could have hurt myself or someone else. This is a serious problem. The remote needs to go and get an upgrade. If they can replace it with a better remote that includes a battery indicator, it will resolve 2 of my biggest problems. With all the negative comments, you must think I hate the board. On the contrary, I highly enjoy it. This is still the early stages of e-boarding and no board is perfect. The board has its faults, but also a lot of positives. Can it be better? Does it need improvement? Absolutely. But it's probably as close as it gets to a complete package compared to other premium boards out in the market today. What you are getting is an exceptional board in terms of quality, performance, comfort, and ride experience. The board is also customizable for easier swapping of parts to cater to your needs. On top of that, customer service has been great. They have been very responsive with my questions and issues with the board.